Hello and welcome to Live Now, where we are building technology together. My name is Ben Friedman, and we're continuing today with a series of videos on how technology companies are managing with the current COVID-19 crisis. Wireless networking is playing a very big part in that management, and there's no one better to talk to about wireless networking than Keith Parsons, the founder of the Wireless LAN Professionals Conference and Group. Keith, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started with some questions, I just want to ask if you are well, your family's well, everything is okay up there on your side of things.
Yes, I live in Utah, and my wife and I are all healthy and fine. In fact, Utah has excess capacity for testing, so both of us are going to get tested today, even though we have no symptoms.
That's
just
fantastic.
To see if we can help get some statistics better.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, and we'll be thinking and praying for you in that regard too. Let's talk a little bit about your business before we get into the industry as a whole. You manage one of the largest wireless conferences around. I was there at the last one, which was earlier this year in Phoenix, and it was kind of amazing. You were probably one of the last conferences that got to go on before the whole big shutdown happened. I'm wondering how things have changed for your future plans with upcoming conferences and upcoming business that you do.
Well, first of all, I'm just grateful that we were able to get our conference. Timing-wise, it worked out. It could have been devastating financially if we'd been a couple of weeks the other direction. And for me, it was I normally go and attend lots of conferences all over the world, and kind of that whole side of the business is shut down. We're holding off on booking a hotel for our fall conference, kind of having to wait and see. Hopefully by next spring, everything will be all better, and we'll be able to come back to Phoenix again.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I certainly share your hope on that. A lot of people talk about when we open up again, there'll be sort of a huge boom. And I think that might be true for things like restaurants and hair salons and those sort of businesses and home builders and folks like that, where they're not a mass group of people. But on the other hand, things like sporting events and other places where there's a mass congregation of people, some people have said that will come back much slower. It could be a year, could be 18 months. And obviously technical conferences would probably fall into that category. Shows like Cisco Live, NAB, CES, those sort of shows. Do you agree? Do you think it'll be that long, or do you think it'll come back sooner, similar to how other businesses will recover?
Well, I'm hoping it will come back sooner. I'm not quite sure. I think some of the larger places where people congregate, sporting events, places with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people, will probably be the slowest to come back. Our little conferences are a couple hundred, so I'm hoping that size might be a little easier to manage. We might have new restrictions we have to deal with and check people at the door. I don't know what it's going to be, but obviously the industry is going to adapt and adjust. In the short term, we've been doing some virtual conferences as an option in the short term. I don't think it's going to replace live conferences, though. It's missing some of the feeling and the reason you go to meet lots of other people. Yes, you can transfer information, but not necessarily in the way people like to absorb it.
Interesting. So I'm curious, you deal with a lot of technology companies and a lot of corporations in your business. Are there ones that you feel have been hit harder than others? Are there some companies that are thriving during this time and other ones that you're not sure if they'll be around next year? And if so, where do you see that division?
I think some companies, obvious examples, Zoom, WebEx, those who support the work from home ethos and how that works, they're obviously growing. Some of them might tank, even though that they're doing really well right now. They might find some flaws. But companies that rely a lot on in-person, I have to go and touch you, I think they're finding a little more difficult, especially when it comes to the sales folks who that's how they make their living, by meeting with new people, pressing the flesh. That's going to be a little more difficult to catch up on. As an industry, those industries who work with and on and through the internet should continue to do exactly what they're doing. In fact, I think they'll be learning. There's a lot of things that they can end up doing with work from home people that they couldn't do otherwise.
Interesting. So, there's been a huge move to cloud-based services over the last couple of years. Do you see that accelerating, or is this really a fantastic boon for those who offer cloud-based services, or do you think that traditional on-prem services will also benefit from this?
I think both. Cloud services was already on a pretty steep arc. They were growing at a great pace, but there are legitimate reasons why a lot of companies can't use cloud or won't for logistical or legal reasons. So on-prem is still going to be doing what it's doing. I think the on-prem people now are have a little tougher. If you're about to roll out a DC somewhere, and you need all hands on deck physically in the same room, that's a little tougher to deal with right now. But they're finding ways to work around that.
So a lot of companies right now are transitioning to a wireless remote workforce. People who used to come into the office, they are now connecting to their office from home, perhaps using Wi-Fi. You're the Wi-Fi guru. What advice can you give to folks who are transitioning to working from home to get the most out of their home network that now is sort of being put to corporate use?
I think the first phase, and because it happened so quickly, was people just went home and used whatever they had at home. As they're moving now, I think they'll be going toward a remote office. So the services you had at your desk at work are now available. The same SSIDs, the same VPN, the same security is now available to you at home. That requires a physical something sent out. So there's a lot of companies who are working right now in shipping those out to their employees so they have the same, nearly exactly the same experience at home that they had at work.
It's interesting. I know a lot of wireless companies out there have sort of branch office solutions for dealing with remote networks, but usually those, at least the ones I've seen, have still been at a price point where it's based on a small office or a small satellite office, not necessarily when your entire workforce of maybe thousands or tens of thousands of people are all dealing with remote. And yet, I don't know that there's a lot of sort of corporate strength home-based solutions out there. Do you see like a new segment of the market there that is one step below the branch router level of cost and complexity?
Oh, no, most definitely. There's a lot of solutions that give the same capability as a branch office, but scaled just to a single person still working. Those companies who already had those on the shelf, and many did, are launching thousands, if not tens of thousands of installations of that small branch office solution, just scaled down. The issue that, and you brought it up, was pricing and licensing was initially made for a slightly different world. And so companies are adapting and adjusting. Some are doing, let's get them out and we'll deal with the pricing issue later, get it taken care of. Others are giving it away for free for the next 60 or 90 days to help encourage people to work more at home.
Great. Well, last question then. Let's assume there are folks out there who can't transition to a corporate or branch office solution. They are still using their home network. Are there 3 or 4 tips that you can give us where they could improve their current network that they're using at home right now?
Well, first, have the fastest internet connection you can possibly get. It's just money. So I like to look at problems if it's just a dollar amount. You go from $50 a month to $100 a month to get 10x throughput. Spend the money. Those are the easiest problems to fix, are when you can just throw some money at it. And usually that's done remotely. You just ask. So one, get the fastest internet you can from your current provider. Next is contact your company, whoever you're working with, and ask for a VPN solution so you can have a tunnel back to your corporate pieces that you have there. And the third, and probably the easiest one people can away, is take your Wi-Fi, I'll use this term, router is what they call them, but it's a Wi-Fi access point, and move it more central to the center of your house. A lot of times our DMARC is at the edge of the building because of old technologies. If we can get those access points closer to where you're working, the closer you get, the more stable your network's going to be.
Fantastic. That is some great advice. Keith Parsons, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the show. We are out of time for today, but please remember, we're going to be releasing a whole lot more of these videos in our ongoing series of how technology companies are managing in this COVID-19 situation. And in the meantime, I'm Ben Friedman. This is Live Now, where we are building technology together.